In our lead stories nationally, St. Kitts Nevis Red Cross responds to SKNLP's accusation of politically motivated appointments of Director General and Disaster Coordinator, and Potato Bay incident, autopsy reveals cause of death of New York man. Regionally, ex-cabinet minister in the Bahamas sues government following acquittal of bribery charges. Internationally, coronavirus, sharp increase in deaths and cases in Hubei. And in sports, Windies women beat Pakistan women 2-0 in series. We'll have the details to these and other stories after this message.
Another look.
Different from how you've seen it before.
Another look.
Takes an in-depth look into business, politics, science, technology, religion, and more.
Another look.
Featuring documentaries from the BBC, regional features, and local ones too.
Another look.
Every Monday at 3 p.m. on the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse, Vaughan.
Welcome back on to the national news in detail. Press Secretariat of St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party SKNLP recently published an article on the newly appointed Director General of St. Kitts Nevis Red Cross, Mr. Hester Rollins, at its Biennium General Assembly held in November of 2019. The article is quoted as stating, "The office of the Prime Minister has reportedly flexed its muscles in getting a brother of St. Kitts and Nevis's Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris appointed to a senior position in the local chapter of an international organization. According to multiple sources over the past few days, the St. Kitts and Nevis Red Cross has been asked to appoint Hester Rollins, a former fire chief, one of Dr. Harris's brothers, as Director General." This article triggered a press release issued on February 10, 2020 by the St. Kitts Nevis Red Cross, speaking out against it and reaffirming the independence of any and all party politics influencing the appointments of any officials. The press release is quoted as stating, on January 7, 2020, the executive convened its first meeting and reviewed the applications which were received. After robust discussions and voting, Mrs. Telka Wallace was unanimously approved for the role of Disaster Coordinator and Mr. Hester Rollins as the Director General in lieu of our supplemental role while adhering to our 7 fundamental principles. The governing board is disheartened and dismayed by the aspersions and innuendos cast on the operations of our noble and voluntary organization. In police news, an autopsy was performed on the body of Timothy Doran of New York by resident pathologist Dr. Nautica Phillip on Wednesday, February 12. Circumstances surrounding the incident are that, according to a police release, a boating accident occurred at sea sometime after 7 p.m. on Sunday, February 9th. A police press release revealed that the dinghy, which had 2 occupants, and the MV Caribbean Explorer No. 2 collided in the Potato Bay area, St. Kitts. The St. Kitts and Nevis Coast Guard was called and responded. Doran experienced difficulties at sea and drowned. Austin Edwards, a native of Ohio, USA, who resides in St. Kitts, was taken to the JNF hospital by members of the Emergency Medical Service. Doran was pronounced dead by the district medical officer. Dr. Phillip concluded that death was caused by an intracranial hemorrhage due to blunt head trauma. Intracranial hemorrhage is a type of bleeding that occurs inside the skull or cranium. The Liquor Licenses Amendment Bill 2020 was successfully passed in the National Assembly on Wednesday, February 12. Mover of the bill, Prime Minister Dr. The Honorable Timothy Harris, said that his administration's effort is to bring this piece of legislation into modernity, adding that it is non-offensive and non-controversial. Dr. Harris noted that the amendment will prove flexible for persons desirous of obtaining their liquor licenses in December, as the bill seeks to amend the Liquor Licenses Act, Chapter 18.21. He stated, and I quote, "Rather than allow entities that would have been able to secure their licenses on December 31st to run afoul of the law, we have created this flexibility where not just one day, but some number of days could be assigned for this purpose," end quote. The bill also received support from Attorney General the Honorable Vincent Byron Jr. St. Kitts tourism sector will welcome 112 passengers from Canada for the first time when Air Canada begins its second weekly non-stop flight into St. Kitts. The Tuesday air service out of Toronto will run into April and will complement Air Canada's Saturday's seasonal air service, which started in November of 2019. In light of the aforementioned, Minister of Tourism in St. Kitts, the Honorable Lindsay Grant, said the air service expansion by Air Canada was unprecedented. Chief Executive Officer of the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, Raquel Brown, said she was delighted to welcome the additional Tuesday air service from Air Canada. St. Kitts Airlift strategy consists of continuing to nurture relationships with the airlines to systematically build out air bridges to and from identified target gateways to grow service in a sustainable manner. Residents of Shadwell St. Kitts will in the near future see a well commissioned to alleviate shortages of water in that area. That's according to Minister with responsibility for water services in St. Kitts, the Honorable Ian Patches Liebert.
In this era of climate variability and resultant rainfall deficit, we have been challenges. In spite of those challenges, we have moved to provide water, especially in the St. Peter's area. And in the next few days, my ministry will commission Shadwell 2 well and provide in excess of 400,000 gallons of water. And we trust and hope that that will eliminate any problems of shortages in that area.
Minister with responsibility for water services in St. Kitts, the Honorable Ian Patches Liebert. Climate change is a long-term shift in global and regional climate patterns. Often climate change refers specifically to the rise in global temperatures from the mid-20th century to present, according to nationalgeographic.org. It also refers to the change in rainfall levels. Prince Yahweh Henry of St. Peter's was found guilty for the offense of manslaughter by a unanimous verdict on February 5, 2020. Henry was charged for the death of his newborn baby. The offense occurred between November 21st and the 23rd, 2014. Henry is remanded at Her Majesty's Prison, awaiting sentencing, which is scheduled for March 20th, 2020. Officials of the Barbados-based Embassy of the United States held discussions with St. Kitts and Nevis' leader of the opposition and leader of the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, Dr. the Honorable Denzil Douglas. Political and Economic Officer Mr. Mike Pennell, who was accompanied by political specialist Mrs. Amelia Swift, met with Dr. Douglas in his role as opposition leader. Dr. Douglas highlighted a number of concerns regarding the phenomenal development now taking place in the Federation. He mentioned a number of other issues related to the upcoming general elections. Meanwhile, Dr. Douglas was briefed on recent developments on the state of Palestine as Palestine's United States-based Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary, Her Excellency Dr. Linda Sobe Ali, who is accredited to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, paid a courtesy call on Dr. Douglas on Wednesday. She briefed Dr. Douglas on the areas of cooperation between St. Kitts and Nevis in the areas of healthcare, culture, climate change, and agriculture. And that's it for our national news segment. You can visit our website at www.vonradio.com or you can check us out on Facebook at Von Radio or our Von Radio YouTube channel for these and other stories. News from across the region is next.
Personal as well as your business needs, and we're here to help. Our knowledgeable staff will work with you to help you achieve the financial success that you or your company needs in a competitive market. We offer solutions to make your banking experience easier, like our savings and checking accounts. Be sure to ask about our youth savers accounts and our Bank of Nevis Go Club. We offer a wide range of personal loans, including mortgage, land, student, auto, and consumer loans. Have access to your funds instantly with our BeOnline internet banking and our debit and credit cards. We make international banking and investing easy. How's your business? Give it the leverage it really needs by letting the Bank of Nevis assist you with all the necessary funding for all your business expenses. It's that easy. What are you waiting for? The Bank of Nevis Limited, improving the quality of life.
Like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/The Bank of Nevis.
Now on to the regional news. Out of the Bahamas, a former minister under the previous Progressive Liberal Party PLP administration is suing the current government for malicious prosecution and false imprisonment 3 months after being acquitted of several bribery charges. Shane Gibson, who beat 15 bribery charges last November, has named the Attorney General, Commissioner of Police COP Mr. Anthony Ferguson, Director of Public Prosecutions Gavin Gaskin, Assistant Superintendent of Police Deborah Thompson, and Contractor Jonathan Ash, from whom he was accused of accepting $280,000 to expedite the approval of $1 million in payments owed by government for cleanup work done in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew in 2016 in the suit, according to Caribbean 360. He's seeking damages for false imprisonment on August 2nd and 3rd, 2017, damages for malicious prosecution arising out of multiple charges of extortion, bribery, misconduct in public office laid maliciously and without reasonable or probable cause, aggravated damages, exemplary damages, costs, and further relief. In addition to filing his suit, Gibson has written official complaints to Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, the Bahamas Bar Association, and the chairman of the Police Service Commission, seeking disciplinary proceedings against ASP Thompson, the top cop, the DPP, and Ash's attorney Alicia Bowe. Gibson's complaints to Prime Minister Minnis and the Police Service Commission point to the controversies arising from his trial, including the revelation that ASP Thompson met with key witnesses to synchronize their testimonies. In Dominica, Health Minister Dr. Irvin McIntyre has said Dominica will be the only Caribbean country able to test for coronavirus after receiving training from the United States Center for Disease Control, DominicaNewsOnline.com says. At the first meeting of the Parliament held on Monday, Dr. McIntyre said the training that's actually began today and will continue tomorrow. He pointed out that Barbados is making efforts towards acquiring the ability to do their own tests, but he claims that Dominica will be the only one after receiving the training this week. Elsewhere in the Caribbean, Trinidad had received testing kits as early as February 7th, according to their Health Minister Terence Dale Singh. Additionally, a statement released by the Health Ministry of Trinidad states CARFA Medical Microbiology Laboratory is accepting specimens for diagnostic testing by molecular method. In an environment where the Caribbean is more challenged by unilateralism abroad, the Caribbean Development Bank CDB is being urged to invest in initiatives to make the region more resilient and self-sufficient. Unilateralism is the process or fact of deciding a policy or action without involving another group or country. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of the Bahamas, Peter Turnquest, who is also chairman of CDB's Board of Governors, made the call while speaking to staff at the bank's Barbados headquarters. He said there is a move towards more unilateralism throughout the global community, and that is making it more and more difficult for our countries to operate and do business as usual. Against this backdrop, Mr. Turnquest argued that the countries needed to rely more on each other and their regional institutions such as CDB, according to Caribbean360.com. The Bahamas Deputy Prime Minister said his country's recent experience with Hurricane Dorian underscored the need for more financial resilience in the region. Still in Bahamas, the Small Business Development Centers SBDC has approved a total of $2.2 million in funding for Abaco and Grand Bahama businesses, according to Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis. Last October, it was announced that a 3-year $10 million loan guarantee and equity financing program was being established to allow eligible Bahamian SMEs to secure up to $500,000 in financing in an effort to restore existing businesses impacted by Hurricane Dorian. The loan guarantee was also established to create new businesses. That money was taken from the Dormant Accounts Fund, EWNews.com says. And in Jamaica, dancehall producer Ainsley Morris, alias Not Nice, was recently nominated for as International Reggae and World Music Award IRAWMA in the category of Producer of the Year. His nod was revealed at the event's launch held in Jamaica Pegasus Hotel recently. The award ceremony is slated for the AC Hotel by Marriott on March 29th. And that's it for our regional news segment. Stay with us for news around the world. Welcome back and now on to the international news. Some 242 deaths from the new coronavirus were recorded in the Chinese province of Hubei on Wednesday, the deadliest day of the outbreak. There was also a huge increase in the number of cases, with 14,840 people diagnosed with COVID-19, the new name for the virus. Hubei has started using a broader definition to diagnose people, which accounts for most of the rise in cases. China sacked 2 top officials in Hubei province hours after the new figures were revealed. Until Wednesday's increases, the number of people with the virus in Hubei where the outbreak emerged was stabilizing. However, the new cases and deaths in the province have pushed the national death toll above 1,350, with almost 60,000 infections in total. Sudan has agreed to compensate the families of 17 U.S. sailors who died when their ship, the USS Cole, was bombed by Al-Qaeda at a port in Yemen in 2000. This is a key condition set by the U.S. for Sudan to be removed from its list of state sponsors of terrorism. The U.S. ruled Sudan was responsible for the attack as the 2 suicide bombers involved were trained in the country. Removal from the U.S. blacklist would allow sanctions to be lifted, a major objective of Sudan's new government. More from the BBC's Mary Harper.
Removed from the US list of state sponsors of terrorism, and this is a key condition. A US court originally ordered Sudan to pay $300 million in compensation, but the amount agreed is understood to be significantly less. The US ruled Sudan was responsible for the attack because the 2 suicide bombers on the dinghy were trained in the country, an allegation denied by Khartoum.
Presidential candidate Mike Bloomberg is paying social media influencers to back him in the hope of reaching younger voters. His campaign has commissioned some of the internet's top viral creators to generate content about him that has reached tens of millions of followers. The former New York mayor's campaign director said its meme strategy was new to presidential politics. He has already spent more than $300 million in his bid to win the White House. Mr. Bloomberg, a former Republican, is one of 8 remaining contenders vying to become the Democratic presidential candidate who will challenge President Donald Trump in November's election. Sabrina Singh, Mr. Bloomberg's national spokeswoman, said Mr. Bloomberg Mike Bloomberg Rather 2020 has teamed up with social creators to collaborate with the campaign, including the meme world. The campaign has been working with Meme 2020, a company that represents some of the biggest social media accounts in the so-called influencer economy. And the top Venezuelan government official has confirmed that the uncle of opposition leader Juan Guaido is being held on suspicion of smuggling dangerous material into the country. Juan Jose Marquez was traveling with Mr. Guaido from Lisbon to Caracas by plane and vanished on Tuesday after being stopped by tax agency personnel. Mr. Guaido called it a cowardly move. The official did not say how Mr. Marquez would have managed to smuggle the items onto an international flight. Mr. Marquez is not the first person with links to Mr. Guaido to be arrested. His chief of staff, Roberto Marrero, was detained last year and remains in prison. Diosdado Cabello, widely considered the second most powerful man in President Nicolas Maduro's government, spoke of Mr. Marquez's arrest on his weekly TV program. Mr. Cabello showed photos of a bulletproof vest and what he said was explosive material, which Marquez has allegedly tried to smuggle into Venezuela. Mr. Cabello did not say how Mr. Marquez would have managed to smuggle such items onto an international commercial flight from Lisbon in Portugal to Caracas. And that's it. That brings us to the end of our news segment. The latest in sports is next.
TDC Automotive invites one and all to TDC Tire World. Buy 3 tires, get the 4th tire absolutely free.
Say what?
Yeah! Buy 3, get 1 free is back at TDC Tire World. All brands, all sizes, installation and balancing free with every set purchased. TDC Automotive, we're #1 for a reason. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back and now on to the sports. In cricket, the West Indies women defeated the Pakistan women in the third unofficial practice match at the Tewantin Cricket Ground in Australia, winning the 3-match series 2-0. The second match of the series was called off due to rain, and the Caribbean women had a 6-wicket victory in the first. The summarized scores were as follows: Windies women 122 runs for 7 in 20 overs, Leanne Kirby 32, Hayley Matthews 27, Alia Riaz 3 for 23. Pakistan women 103 all out in 19.3 overs, Bisma Maroof 51 not out, Iram Javed 15, Anisa Mohammed 3 for 12, Shakira Salman 2 for 11. West Indies women won by 19 runs. Still in cricket, the United States have equaled the record for the lowest total in a one-day international, scoring 35 runs in the World Cup League 2 defeat by Nepal. Leg spinner Sandeep Lamishain took 6 wickets for 16 runs as the US were bowled out in 12 overs in Kathmandu. Nepal, playing their first international series on home soil, reached the target in 32 balls. The United States total matched the score Zimbabwe were bowled out for in Harare against Sri Lanka in 2004. West Indies-born opener Xavier Marshall, who made 16, was the only US batsman to reach double figures. In more cricket, 5 players have been found guilty of a Level 3 breach of the ICC Code of Conduct for players and support personnel following the final of the ICC Under-19 Cricket World Cup in Potchefstroom in South Africa. 3 Bangladeshi players, MD Tawhid Hijroy, Shamim Hussain and Rakibul Hassan, and 2 Indian players, Akash Singh and Ravi Bishnoi, were charged with violating Article 2.21 of the Code, whilst Bishnoi received a further charge of breaching Article 2.5. All 5 players have accepted the sanctions proposed by ICC Under-19 Cricket World Cup match referee Graham LeBroy. Level 3 breaches carry a minimum penalty of 4 suspension points and a maximum penalty of 12 suspension points. In local sports, the NABA Chargers continued their winning ways in the youth basketball tournament being held in St. Kitts. On February 7th, the NAB Chargers went up against the Sandy Point Futa Falcons and defeated them 75 points to 41 points. In football, football's governing body in Africa has been shown to be in a state of disarray, an audit has revealed. The investigations into the Confederation of African Football, CAF, questioned the body's accounting, its governance, and its payments. Amongst other details, the audit carried out by PricewaterhouseCoopers PwC found that CAF's accounting was unreliable and not trustworthy. Some 35 of 40 large payments totaling $8.3 million were unusual. CAF is understaffed with an overworked and demoted workforce. The audit highlighted transactions totaling more than $20 million, which either have little or no supporting documentation or were considered higher risk. One area the PwC audit suggested further investigating was the role played by CAF President Ahmad and his attaché Loic Garand, among others, in the deal with French company Tactical Steel. The company's financial dealings with CAF were described as highly suspicious. Mr. Ahmad has already strenuously denied any wrongdoing with regard to this case. And in tennis, British #1 Johanna Konta suffered her 4th straight singles defeat as she was knocked out of the St. Petersburg Ladies Trophy. Konta, 28, stepped up her return from a knee injury with a doubles win on Monday and, as a 4th seed, had a bye to the last 16 of the singles. The world #14 faced Oceane Dodin of France in just her 3rd singles match since September's US Open. However, Dodin, ranked 145 places below Konta, won 6-3, 6-4 in Russia. And that's it for sports. The weather is next. Welcome back to weather tonight. Partly cloudy to cloudy with a 70% or a high chance of showers. The winds east-northeast at 22 to 41 kilometers per hour. The seas 1.8 to 2.8 meters. A small craft advisory remains in effect. The sunrise tomorrow will be at 6:38 a.m. And that's how we wrap up the major news package for today, Thursday, February 13th, 2020. Before we go, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Nationally, St. Kitts Nevis Red Cross responds to SKNLP's accusation of politically motivated appointments of Director General and Disaster Coordinator. And Potato Bay incident, autopsy reveals cause of death of New York man. Regionally, ex-cabinet minister in the Bahamas sues government following acquittal of bribery charges. Internationally, coronavirus, sharp increase in deaths and cases in Hubei. And in sports, Windies women beat Pakistan women 2-0 in series. On behalf of the rest of the news team, I am Jarvis Brown wishing you a pleasant evening.